Yep, and the podcast, The Saturday Sermon.
The Saturday Sermon.
Look right here, man.
And thank you once again, Roll Tide Willie, for that beautiful, beautiful introduction. It's about the only thing great you did in that cameo. But, nevertheless,
It wasn't cameo. We're just buddies.
I'm sorry. I know you guys have been friends from years in Tuscaloosa together, having a great time and all that good stuff. But before we get started, before we go any further, we got to do what we always do. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, it's time to thank the Lord above, the God of college football, for bringing us another episode of the Saturday Sermon College Football Show. Nick, before we get started, how you feeling, bud?
I'm good. I'm leaving for Mexico and on Friday. It was the only time Brooke had to do vacation. I said, "You're not gonna be mad if I'm watching football on the beach, are you?" And she's like, "No, I'm gonna be on the beach." So that's where I'm gonna be.
Tell
I
the
got a couple
truth.
days.
Tell the truth. She said, "No, Nick, I'm going to be on the beach reading a book."
Reading a book. Whatever she's gonna do, it doesn't matter to me. I'm watching the fucking football game.
Okay. Well, Nick, this weekend, I would ask you what you did this weekend, but honestly, we pretty much did the same thing. We spent time together. We watched ball together. We got to hang out with some of the other guys over at Dan's house. We got to celebrate Jordan's almost born child with a little bit of a baby shower, diaper party type ordeal. Drank some beers, had a great time. But guys, I'm going to add a clip in right here. Nick, Uncle Nick, what do you think of that clip? JoJo's the man, isn't he?
I love that damn kid.
Yeah, you guys
Love that
really bonded a lot this weekend. It was great to see my
That
son and his uncle get to have some great
melted
time.
That melted my heart.
He's a special kid, man. Most importantly, he's going to get to spend a lot more time with you here. Coming up in the next couple of months, we're making
That's
that transition
crazy.
home. It's crazy to think that probably by the end of the season, we're going to be doing some of these episodes together in person.
Dude, you haven't been home since high school, and high school has been several years from now, or years ago at this point. It's a crazy thought, and it's awesome. I think that's gonna only allow us to do a lot cooler things, with this pod, and I'm definitely looking forward to it.
Me too, man. It's going to be a blessing. I just put the mouse in front of the screen for a second. My apologies, fans. But yeah, I do think it's going to be great for us. I think it's going to be awesome to be able to do this together, so we don't have to worry about any kind of technology issues or anything like that, and we can kind of run stuff off of each other when we're with each other. But most importantly, we're going to be able to start watching games and just click and record and commentate on games as they're going on. So pretty excited about that. But Nick, let's not waste any more time. Let's jump into this past weekend's. We picked up about 4 or 5 games that we wanted to review. I believe it's 4 from this past weekend that were really enticing to us and really exciting for us. So first and foremost, let's start with the Friday night slate. Number 17, Boise State at UNLV. The final score was 29-24, Boise State. A couple takeaways from me on this game, and then you can jump in. Ashton Jeanty looked human for the first time in his season, which is crazy to think about. I mean, he had 33 carries, 128 yards, 1
I was
touchdown.
gonna say, did he look human?
But the thing that made him look human was he had 3.9 yards per carry when he was at an astronomical rate of nearly 10 yards per carry this whole season. So I think he looked more human. He looked very much more mortal stat-wise, but he still played a great game. Last takeaway of that game, I will say this. UNLV had the best game plan to be able to stop that. Jackson Woodard, linebacker, who finished the game with 14 tackles.
Kid is a freak, man.
4 solos and 1 TFL. He was queuing up on Jeanty every time Jeanty touched the ball. I'm looking forward to seeing Ashton this week because I think it's going to be a big game for him against San Diego State. I think they're like 28-point favorites in this game.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, it was a sneaky good one between two G5s that are really they have been contenders up to this point. I mean,
Yep.
UNLV's kind of, losing their traction on that front, but I mean, you never know with the G5, and that's
Yeah.
exactly why I picked UNLV in this week. I think UNLV has something good going.
Haj Malik
They,
Williams, man, he's a dog.
that kid, just when you thought that asshole was going to ruin their season, they have a quarterback that's twice, three times as good.
Yeah, but also he was the starter in the spring. He won the job in the spring, but then they let that Sloka guy or Sluka guy come in and start over him with that NIL money. But yeah, Haj Malik Williams won that job in the spring. He was supposed to be their starter this season.
Well, he's their guy. There's no
Yes.
doubt about it. That kid can play ball, and I knew this would be a fun one. Like this was just, I mean, to be honest with you, I'm shocked that the final score was 29-24 and not 49-44 because it started off like lightning. I mean, there were
Yeah.
just strike after strike. And talk about a heavyweight bout. There's nothing better in football than just a classic running back versus linebacker matchup, you know, and it didn't disappoint. Both of those guys are excellent football players. Both of them are going to
Yep.
have a chance to play, I would say, football for a long time,
I
you
agree.
know.
I agree.
Um, Overall, it was a good football game to watch. And I mean, my pick wasn't right there, but hey, it was close. And I think those G5s, I mean, you don't know what's going on in college football anymore at this point,
Hmm.
but you know, that G5 race is getting really intriguing.
It really is, and it's super exciting. I mentioned tonight. I mean, you would literally probably your G5 top teams after the Kennesaw State Liberty whatever happened this past week. That was this week, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and after that happened, I would say your G5 teams currently in the running are going to be number one, Boise State, number two and three, your Armed Force schools with Army slightly edging out Navy right now. And then you got the team that's on right now, Louisiana, that is literally knocking on the door of a potential G5 berth. I mean, you got some pretty good teams out there, but I don't think any of them can really hold a candle to any of those top 10 other teams, top 11 other teams, except for Boise State, and that's me truthfully speaking.
I agree with you. I mean, just seeing them take care of business. Ashton Jinty is a freak, of course, but I mean, not only that, man. Like they're a good football team across the board. You know
Yep.
what I mean? Maddox Madsen, that kid is a playmaker himself. I know they got a couple receivers that can play some ball.
Well, they have that tight end
It's
too, that Lautner kid or that Lutner kid or whatever his name is. I
yeah,
mean, he
yeah.
he didn't have anything outlandish that he did this week, but he did have that one touchdown reception, and he had like
I
39 or
mean,
40 yards receiving or something like that. But the kid's a dog
four
too.
receptions, 38 yards.
Yeah, and he had a touchdown, right?
Yep.
I mean, they got players on the field, but their most important player ended up kind of turning it on in the second half and playing a pretty good ball game towards the end, which with Aston Genty. But Nick, anything else you want to say about this game?
Nothing right now. It's a good football game to watch. And those Friday games, man, I'm telling you, I've loved them this season. They have not really disappointed
No,
at all. I can't think of, I mean, K-State beating up on Arizona
Arizona.
was
Yep.
pretty ugly. That was supposed to be a bigger game, but other than that, there have been some excellent Friday night games.
100% agree with that. Well, next game we're going to talk about is a game that we actually watched together at the same time. It was number 5 Texas at 25 Vandy. The final score was 27-24 Texas. And as we said last week, and we've said for the past several weeks, Vanderbilt can be a thorn because they have a guy out there, the great value Johnny Manziel, Pavia. I mean, he's just showing he's the best backyard football player in college. I mean, his stat line was at 16 for 29, 143 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 16 rushes, 67 yards, and 1 touchdown. The kid literally he's not as good as or as efficient as Johnny Manziel, but he's a fun football player to watch. I don't think he's a fun quarterback. I don't think he's a great quarterback by any means, but he's a fun college football player, like we mentioned Tebow, like we mentioned Manziel. So I don't know, man. My other takeaway from this game is that Quinn Ewers' interception woes, they're continuing. They're carrying over. They are doing what Georgia did. They are doing what Alabama did. They are doing what Tennessee did currently. And they're going through like this little lull period after a big win. Nick, kind of what are your thoughts about the game and all that good stuff? And what do you have to say about Texas and Vandy?
Man, I'm starting to think that Johnny Manziel may be the great value version of Diego Pavia because that kid, I mean, think about their resume and the games they've played, the tight games that they've played. I mean, they're going through murders row week after week, and they are unfazed. It is the coolest thing to watch. Um, But like you said about Texas, I think that's the bigger thing. Yes, I think Vanderbilt is a thorn, but if Texas is what we thought they were supposed to be, I just don't think they should have struggled the way they did. Um, you're starting to see a lot of this come to fruition where you have these teams that have played early slates where they're just waxing these schools that are not very good. We got that with Texas. What we saw was a Michigan game that we thought was a bigger deal than it is. It's turning out to not be. Now, don't get me wrong, winning by multiple scores in the big house early season when, they're still feeling themselves, that's impressive. But seeing Michigan down the stretch, it's like, how big of a win really was that? Um, I
100%.
think I think Texas has some soul searching, that's for
Hmm.
sure. But that being said, I'm not ready to count a single team out. We were ready to count Georgia out just after they beat Bama. Now they go in and wax Texas.
After they
And
lost to Bama.
yeah, yeah, I'm sorry. After they lost to Bama, we were ready to count them out, thinking, wow, they still got Texas on the schedule. They still got them and that. I don't know, man. I think it's an interesting race, but they got some soul searching if they want to continue to meet their season expectations. And I'm telling you what, I've had it circled on my calendar for a long time. They got Texas A&M, who is hot right now, coming up at the end of the year, and that game is probably a playoff game.
So my notes, my actual notes, literally said, "Is Texas in trouble, and is A&M going to be the best SEC team out of Texas this season?" That game is shaping up to be an absolute banger, and it's a great way to end the year. My thing about A&M, which we'll get into here in a minute, they have to play offensively. They have to be able to put it all together. And I mean, anything else you want to say
The
about
fact
Texas
that they
Vandy?
haven't, though,
But
no,
is there
no,
anything
no,
else you want to say about Texas Vandy? Because we'll move straight into LSU
nope.
at Texas A&M, 38 to 23 final score. Texas A&M with the winner. But jumping back to what we were talking about, I mean, they really looked good running the football. I mean, the team rushed the ball 45 times, 245 yards total, with 5 rushing touchdowns on the day. Nick, they got a quarterback in Reed who literally had 3 rushing touchdowns on the day. But the story on the other end is that they were 8 for 20 for 134 yards passing between the two quarterbacks. Nick, if they could put it together between their passing game and their running game, they're going to be. I mean, they're going to. I could see them winning out the rest of the season, to be truthful to you. And that is if they can put it together. They have not been able to completely put it together this season, but if they put it together on both sides on offense, they're going to be able to. They're going to be able to do some great things, and I think that Texas game gets even sweeter.
Yeah, you know what I think a problem lies with this Texas A&M squad is this offense was built for Connor Wigman.
Yeah.
He has not shown up the way he was expected to, and you have this kid Marcel Reed who they've leaned on.
Well,
This offense isn't
Wigman's been showing up in flashes. That's the thing. It's almost like every 2 games he just doesn't show up.
exactly, but I mean, my my point is this offense isn't built for Marcel Reed. So I think there's a disconnect when it comes to that. And I've always hated using two quarterbacks. I just
Same.
don't think it's dependent because the
Yeah.
way these guys have done it, I've loved, but it's not the same as like, oh, you're going to start a series, you're going to start. That just doesn't
Yeah.
work.
It's
You
it's
can't get
it.
in a rhythm and a flow.
There was a few years ago where Texas did this, and I cannot remember who their two quarterbacks were, but they had a guy. His last name might have been Swoops. That was more of like the goal line package. We're going to let you run the ball. We're going to let you run, option type plays and stuff like that. And I cannot remember who their starter was that season. But yeah, I mean, Texas did it a few years ago, and they had some success with it, especially in that those goal line situations when they could really add
I
an
mean,
extra wrinkle to their offense. And I think this is a great way to use this, not in a way like you said, where you have a perfect example right now, Texas, where they could easily say we're going to do a two quarterback system where Arch goes in for a drive, Quinn goes in for a drive,
just
and
doesn't
bounce back and forth. It just doesn't help with the flow of the game. I think this is the best way to do it. It's almost like a wildcat package, and essentially,
and what else I'm going to say is I've been saying it all along about LSU. I just don't. they've started. I've given them their flowers moving forward for how they've bounced back after the USC game,
Yeah,
but I've been skeptical the whole time. I'm like, I don't, I'm not buying stock. I'm not
yeah,
buying stock. I don't feel that they're a complete enough team to be able to do the things that their rankings show.
yeah.
And we saw that, we saw that.
And I
But
picked
th
I
that being
picked
said,
LSU, so
that's why I picked Texas A&M. I've been big on Texas A&M. We've talked about that, but these things kind of just played themselves out,
yeah.
And there's a lot of other teams it's gonna happen to as well. But yeah, man, Texas A&M is they could be a sleeping giant.
I agree. I will say last thing about this game. Once again, I think Nussmeier is a great quarterback. He's showing he's going to be good at the pro level. He's a great quarterback. He's got an awesome arm. He's got awesome talent. But right now, they're using him like USC's using Miller Moss. There's no reason why he threw the ball 50 times this week. He threw the
No,
ball, and we said this a couple weeks ago with Miller Moss. When you throw the ball 50 times a game, you're going to get it picked off. Well, he had 3 interceptions
easily.
this past weekend, and that hurt him. That really came back to bite them. And they didn't run the ball much.
Well,
LSU might have.
the problem is they ran the ball for an average of 1.6 yards a carry.
I was going to say, I mean, LSU literally ran the ball 22 times for 35 total yards, which is not okay. So, yeah, Nick, I don't have anything else to say about this game. I'll just say LSU really let my parlay down this week. Well, we'll transition, Nick, and Joey Transitions isn't really feeling all the hyped up transitions. But one of the things I will do for you tonight, Nick, is I'm going to give you the floor on this last game from this past week. Number 3, Penn State at Wisconsin. Final score 28-13, Penn State. Nick, I'm going to let you go. We were supposed to have a guest on at this time, but it sounds like the guest fell asleep on the couch. He has to wake up at 4 in the morning to get a workout in, supposedly, because he can't work out any other time, which I don't understand that. But anyways, our guest did let us down, but that's okay. Nick, I'm going to give you the floor. I'm going to drink some of my vitamin D whole milk while you riff on Penn State, Wisconsin.
Yeah, so unfortunately, Abdul Carter couldn't make the pod. He was our surprise guest, but anyways, it's okay. We'll get him on another time. Um, so this game, a slow start again. I didn't like it. I said I expected Wisconsin to come out and play some good football. I mean, they're fired up. They had 3 wins in a row. It's a night game in Madison. It's not an easy environment. I don't care who's who. I think Wisconsin gets kind of shitted on a little bit too much, maybe. Um, so I wasn't entirely shocked by the start of the game. One thing that a lot of people aren't taking into account either is the field position. Wisconsin did an excellent job with flipping the field. Penn State started how many drives well into the 20-yard line, 10-yard line. And it's just hard to get something going when you do that. So hats off to Wisconsin and what they're able to accomplish that first half. Now we see Drew go down. And as a Penn State fan, you get flashbacks of 2021 season in Iowa at Kinnick Stadium. You have Sean Clifford, who is on a tear. Probably the fastest, best start I've seen him. 2 touchdowns back to back. It looks like they are going to roll this Iowa team, and they should have. He goes down with an injury. A couple other guys go down with injury, and you have Taquan Roberson, I think was his name. The kid had no business being a backup quarterback, with all due respect. It was the last time you saw him in a Penn State uniform. Penn State ended up dropping the game. So as a Penn State fan, you look at this and you're like, here it is. We are in the same spot. Not only PJ Mustipher, defensive lineman, got injured that football game at Iowa. That was a key player. We had Anthony Dunco, starting offensive lineman, go down. And we also had Denai Dennis Sutton, our starting defensive end, go down. It was the same exact spitting image as that Iowa moment. So you own the half and you're thinking, Oh no, I got sick to my stomach. The difference is we have the reincarnation of Trace McSorley in Mr. Bo Prabula. That kid, I'm telling you what, he has ice in his veins, I think. He's got a swagger about him where he doesn't he's so poised. He went in there and he did his job and they ended up winning the football game. Okay. Tip my cap to him, but also it says a lot about Andy Kotelnicki and what this offense is able to do. You are able to go from one guy with a different skill set than the other, and you do not skip a beat. You don't skip a beat. Defensively, they dominated the whole football game. Um, they pulled away. I'm really not disappointed in this game. I didn't like the slow start. I didn't like that Julian Fleming dropped an open pass that should have been a touchdown, dropped another open pass as he's done a couple times this season. I think some things could have been a little more clean, but the fact that given what we just watched out of the Buckeyes this past weekend and what we saw out of the defensive line and the guys up front stopping the run at Wisconsin, it makes me feel pretty good.
Nick, I actually let you go a little bit longer than I wanted to, but I didn't want to cut you off. I finished that milk very quickly. I actually chugged what was it, about 24 ounces of whole milk right there. Was done with it like that. You'll see it on the film. But, Nick, we had a big argument about this and a big discussion about this. And the best part about podcasting is arguments, they drum up, clicks and stuff. So, Nick, I'm going to get straight into it. Nick, we had a big argument about this, and I disagree with you, and I agree with you at the same time. You said something there that I said to you the other day, essentially, is that Bo is the prototypical Penn State quarterback under Franklin. Bo, his skill set matches very well with Kotelnicki's in the sense that Bo can do a lot more things like Jalen Daniels could than Drew Aller can. Drew Aller is more of a talented quarterback. Now we're going to compare. I think Bo has a lot of parallels with Diego Pavia. I think he can run. I think he can make quick throws. I think he can make plays and extend plays with his feet in the sense that I think Drew is more suited for a pass-first offense with his ability to be mobile in the pocket. Not saying he can't be mobile or scramble, but his talent is his arm. And for several weeks now, we have seen Drew throw the ball to open receivers or throw the ball to receivers. It hit them in the hand, they drop the ball. Then he has to feed Tyler Warren because that's his only person that he can throw the ball to confidently that will catch the ball. He can throw it to the guys out of the backfield as well. But Nick, you and I had our argument and our debate about this, and I truly believe that Bo is going to put you in the same position with his skill set than Drew Aller will, or if not, help you guys a little bit more because of the fact that his mobility opens up a little bit more of the option opportunities for you, the RPO opportunities for you. I think that you, as we said since week 0, you have the best backfield in college football with your running backs. They might not be playing the best that they can play, but I feel like a new spark from a guy like Bo can really set that up for future success for you guys. That is my opinion on that. I don't think you're losing much if Aller doesn't play this week, and I know you were worried about not having that coming into this game, but I think that Bo does enough with his arm that he's going to be able to make those short passes, but he's going to be able to make plays and extend plays with his feet, and I don't think you're in that bad of a position this week, especially after watching Ohio State last week. Nick, that's my opinion on that. I'm not saying that Bo is a better quarterback than Drew. I'm saying Bo, and I've said this to you, maybe, I don't know if I've said it to you on camera, but privately I know I've said it to you a million times. Drew is better off going to a school where he can let loose because his arm talent is way too good, and unless Penn State pulls a bunch of really good receivers in the portal, they're wasting his ability. And yes, he's a very much a pro-level quarterback, and yes, he will succeed in the pro level, but he's not going to be as good as he can be at Penn State.
No, I think that's very fair. I think there's a couple things here. One, Fleming's really the only guy that's been inconsistent with dropping passes. Nobody else really has. Compared to last season, it was night and day difference. My thing is this. I would rather have them both than neither of them. And the reason I say that is my biggest concern is Drew can make elite level throws, right? He can put a football where not many quarterbacks in college can. Okay. So my only concern is, yes, that could open up with Bo running the football. That could spring Katron Allen, Nick Singleton, who's been banged up, by the way, and that's another reason that he hasn't been where he's been. He's been hurt a little bit. If you recall, he didn't play at UCLA.
Yep.
So he hasn't looked the same since. Now, that being said, my biggest concern is if you have Bo, is Ohio State able to play man coverage and load up the box?
They can,
Because
but
when you have Drew,
they can, but I do think that Bo has enough arm that it's still going to be a threat.
it just remains to be seen because we haven't seen him really throw the ball much downfield in his whole career. Drew, we've seen him do it. We've seen Drew throw some outlandish passes, and that's my biggest thought when it comes down to it. I want both guys healthy because I want to use both of them, but I think the biggest difference here, and yes, if we have to run with Bo, I'm going to be nervous for sure, but I don't feel nearly as nervous and as a lot of people may. And the difference is Andy Kotelnicki and what he's capable of doing. I have so much faith in that guy. When we got him, looking at the Ohio State team and all the money they spent versus this Penn State team, who's still very good, just not a $30 million roster, whatever best money football or best money NIL can buy, best team NIL can buy. I had faith that Kotelnicki can, seeing him do so much more with less that he did in Kansas. I don't know. I have a lot of faith in the guy. And so yeah, we'll get into that game, but yeah, I mean, I think having him as the OC makes me feel a lot better no matter who's at quarterback.
Yeah, like I said, I really do. I like Bo in his system a little bit more. And like I said, I'm not like I said, and I do give you a lot of grief and a lot of guff, I guess what old people say, about Penn State at times privately, but the sermon I don't tell a lie. And I was more optimistic when Penn State was down in this game than you were. And I'm just being honest. I was more optimistic
that's
than
fine.
you were.
I've had my
I think
heart
I
broken
even
many
told you
times.
I think I even told you to shut the F up and to stop complaining. You guys are going to win this game. And then you started complaining about this, and I literally said stop. Like, it's pretty pathetic that I have more faith in your team than you do because you're so miserable about the things that have happened in the past, and you dwell
Dude,
too much about
I'm
the things that have
scarred.
happened in the
I am
past that you're scarred,
scarred.
and you shouldn't be. This Penn
I'm
State
a
team
scarred human.
this Penn State team is different this year. I really think so.
I hope you're right, man. I really do.
Well, Nick, let's talk about a couple guys that are different. Nick, Joey Transitions isn't really transitioning too well, but that was my best transition of the night. I don't know what's going on with me today. I did get head-butted by my son before we started recording, so that's always great. But, Nick, let's talk about the Ashton Jeanty Players of the Week. Nick, do you want to go ahead and go first? Because I'm pretty sure you can guess who my Players of the Week are.
Yeah. I have one guy. It again kind of following the same suit as last week. This wasn't necessarily a guy that blew up the stat sheet because I think there's more things that are valuable than just that. It's also Ohio State week, so call me biased, but Bo Prabula coming in a hostile environment to well, like he didn't skip a beat, like he's been playing the whole game, got the job done, strung together two really long drives. He was very efficient. He had two incomplete passes. That's it out of like 15 attempts. Bo Prabula is my Ashton Jeanty Player of the Week.
Shout out to Ashton Jeanty. Nick, I have 3 this week.
I know Ashton Jeanty's one of them.
I have one offensive guy. That's a quarterback. And that is Talon Green, former Boise State quarterback, now at Arkansas. Had an incredible week. He was electric. 23 for 29, 314 yards passing, 5 touchdowns, 1 interception, 8 rushes for 79 yards, 1 touchdown against Mississippi State. It is Mississippi State, but that is a stellar performance. I believe he made on. I believe he's the college football team of the week. I believe he's the quarterback on that this week. My second is a defensive player, cornerback, D'Angelo Pons from Indiana. 2 interceptions, 1 touchdown, 5 tackles in their win versus Washington. Now, staying on the subject of Ashton Jeanty, this award is named after the great Ashton Jeanty. Nick, my last player of the week is the one and only Travis Hunter.
I knew you were gonna.
9 catches,
Knew you were
153
gonna do
yards, 2 touchdowns, and on defense, 2 tackles, but most importantly, 4 PBUs. Nick, God, that was a great game for Travis Hunter. I'm not picking Ashton Jeanty this week. The award's named after him. He gets enough praise on this pod. Let's give the other guy a little bit of praise. Travis Hunter
He balled out.
He played a Heisman caliber game.
I ain't no arguing it.
Yeah, so those are my 3 players of the week. But, Nick, I think there's a lot of guys that really deserve to be on this. There was a few defensive linemen that had excellent days and excellent weeks, but that kid from Indiana, he just kind of went off. Wow.
That is a scary football team.
They're petrifying, and it's great. It's incredible, and I was talking actually to one of my coworkers about this today who doesn't know much about college football. Her family is a bunch of Illinois fans and stuff. She's one of my really good friends, but I was talking about this today. It's crazy to think a couple years ago, Indiana probably had more pure talent on their roster with Penix and all that stuff, and they couldn't seem to have this same spark. And it's the Cignetti effect, man. It really is. It's the guy is
he's
a
a
program.
special
He's a program builder.
guy.
He's a program builder. What he did at JMU is phenomenal. Hey, let's pack up and move to Indianapolis or move to Bloomington, Indiana, and let's do it at a Big Ten school. This is beautiful. I love watching it. But yeah, those are my players of the week.
But quick thought on Cignetti. He didn't pack up his things and they were Louis. He packed up the lunch pail, the
He grabbed the keys. He grabbed the keys.
chippy.
He brought the lunch pail. He brought the keys for the excavators. He drove them down to Indiana. He brought the keys to the combines, and he's ready to start plowing some
It
fields.
wasn't it wasn't Louis. It was something, but it was quiet, subtle, and very sneaky. I initially thought when he took the job, I'm like, oh man, why'd he take that job? Like of all the jobs that he could have ended up getting at some point, he takes Indiana.
Yeah, I'm convinced he could have did this anywhere at this point.
Oh, if you can do it at Indiana, yes, 100%.
All right, so let's talk about this real quick. If you could go back and do it again, and you knew what you knew now, you know what you know now, and you are the athletic director at Alabama, and you're looking at, or how about let's do this. You're the athletic director at Alabama. You're the athletic director at Washington. You got Jed Fish out there looking for a job. You got Kalen DeBoer out there looking for a job. How much money are you paying Cignetti to beat the other school to get him? Do you think that Alabama would be in a different position under Cignetti?
It's hard to tell. It's easy to sit back and say, oh, 100%. But, there's coaches that just do different things and their skill sets are in different areas. Cignetti is obviously a program builder. He didn't have to do that at Alabama. There was already a culture in store. It's like, is he really getting much out of that job? He chose to go. Obviously, he didn't have every place knocking, which is crazy to me.
Nuts.
That he does it. Now he wasn't gonna get a job like Alabama. There's no way.
But how come?
Because that's just
Didn't JMU
that's just the way
just
it is.
didn't JMU just move to FBS?
Yeah, but they're a they're a small G5. I'm just telling you, the SEC would never do it. A program like Bama would never do it.
Okay.
Especially going after or going from Nick Saban, they were going to have to try to find the absolute next best guy.
How
I
about
don't
How
think
about Washington then? How about Washington then? I don't want to cut you off there. I get that point, but how about Washington?
Washington. I'm taking. I mean, Washington. I would have hired Signetti. I
Okay.
mean, Jed Fish had an excellent season, but I mean, especially taking the Washington after what they lost into this Big Ten, which is a lot tougher pound for pound than what they had last year. This new Big Ten. I think Signetti, I mean, if he's doing this at Indiana, what could he have done at Washington?
Exactly. That's my point. I think he would have taken that team back to the playoffs.
I mean, he's very fat chance he takes Indiana to the playoffs.
Yep. Crazy. But all right, Nick, we kind of got off on a tangent there, on a rant there, but man, Signetti's a hell of a coach. But Nick, we always have news stories that we want to cover, and this is usually your hotbed and your topic. But before you get started, I got a news story I want to cover.
Okay.
We had this conversation a few weeks ago when I was driving, and I want to get your thoughts on this. Ryan Day hasn't beaten a top 5 opponent since September 3rd, 2022. He's lost 4 straight. James Franklin hasn't beaten a top 5 opponent since October 22nd, 2016. He has lost 10 straight. They face off this weekend in a top 5 matchup. Nick, we had a conversation, and I said I was going to keep it off the pod because we did get a little bit heated in this conversation, and we ended up throwing insults at each other, and it was very unproductive. We've gotten past it. We've moved on. We've shaken hands and given each other a hug and made up since then. But my question for you, take the NIL out of it. Take how much money Ohio State spent on their team. Take expectations out of it. Let's just take the 2 head coaches, okay? Both head coaches have pretty good teams. They have great teams. On paper, they have great teams. Are they the same guy when it matters the most? Are they the same guy? Their responses, we're not taking that into account. We're talking about their ability as a coach and to lead their men forward to win the game. Are they virtually the same guys?
No.
Okay.
And I'm going to tell you, and I know you say take out as many things as you can, which I get that, but you can't just do that because those stats are very deceiving. How many times was born on third base Ryan Day? How many times were the Ohio State Buckeyes a top 5 ranked team when they lost to a top 5 ranked team?
Yeah.
How many times were Penn State?
Yeah.
A couple times. A couple times, there's no doubt about it, right? There's no doubt about it. But Day has been there. People talk about Penn State and they lost, they can't win the big game. They've beaten everybody they've played. They went to a Rose Bowl to stomp a good Utah football team. They've played big football games and they've won them. They can only do what they've had in front of them at the time, right? So who they happen to have faced were the national champs and a team that made the playoff 2 times prior, 1 or 2 times prior. Yeah, 2 times prior. And then the Ohio State Buckeyes, who should have won a national championship had they in 2022, had they, or 21, yeah, 21-22, had they not shanked a chip shot field goal against Georgia. So it's like
On New Year's
on New Year's
at midnight.
at midnight, love to see it. But yeah, I just, no, I don't think it's a fair assessment based off of who has what. Ryan Day has been a top 5 guy and lost all these games.
Okay.
James Franklin took Penn State. I mean, don't get me wrong, Bill O'Brien did some great things, but Penn State still was down bad. He took them from basically the grave up to being what they are today. He also, if people forget, won 9 games at Vandy. I have my gripes with James Franklin. Don't get me wrong. But when you sit back and take off those rose-colored shades, he's not as bad as people think. I think data is a little more skewed than people think, or than it really, than people look at it.
Okay. So my question for you now: we had this conversation before Ohio State played Oregon, not after. We had it before. So now, this weekend, we have Penn State, who's ranked ahead of Ohio State now, at Ohio State. If Penn State loses that game, are we still having the same conversation where you're saying Ryan Day is and James Franklin aren't the same guy, or are you saying that your opinion isn't changing on this matter?
I mean, look, this does Ryan Day needs this more than James Franklin does.
I thought he
I
needed the
think a
Michigan. I
lot.
thought he needed the Michigan game last year more than he needed anything else. I still
Well, yeah,
stand firm that I think he was on the hot seat
wholeheartedly.
last year, and they didn't say anything
But
out loud.
this is different.
Yeah,
This is because I think what a lot of people, I mean, sure, they're ranked ahead, or they're ranked right behind Penn State, mind you, 1 spot, but they are still the Vegas favorite to win the football game.
only
Okay,
3.5 points.
3.5 points. It was 6.5 before or at the beginning of the game or beginning of the year. So I think that there's a lot of people that would still, you see a lot of polls out there that still have Ohio State above Penn State, but
Hmm?
you can't justify the move because of the circumstances. Ohio State played an ugly game last week. That's
Hmm.
the only other dirt you got on them. Otherwise, I think a lot of people would argue that Ohio State's the better football team.
Okay, I actually don't think that, but
I mean, Vegas thinks it.
yeah, Vegas thinks a
I
lot of
mean,
things.
but you're gonna make they're a 3.5 point favorite at Happy Valley. That
Yeah.
is very telling of what people think the kind of team Ohio State is.
Well, Vegas also has Miami as a 21.5 point favorite over Duke, which I think is very deceptive. But Vegas also had Vandy as a 24 or 23 point dog to Texas. So, just saying.
Crazier things have happened. I mean, this is college football, but
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Like I said,
I don't know. I
I
think this game is very important for both coaches. I think it's more pressing for Ryan Day to get this victory than James Franklin, given the circumstances.
and you know how much I hate Ryan Day, but I do think, in my opinion, I do think he's a better coach than James Franklin in the sense that I do think that,
He has not shown me anything to think so just yet.
well, he's shown up every
He
year against
he
Penn. He's shown up every year against Penn State.
against Penn State, he's had top 3 recruiting class every single year. He should beat Penn State,
Okay.
who's been in roughly 15th in the country.
Well, we're not going to start yelling at each other, but we'll continue to agree to disagree on things. But I do think that this is the year that Penn State beats Ohio State. We can get
Hope you're
more into
right.
that once we get into that game. But Nick, let's go on these hot new subjects and stuff. I'm going to mute my mic.
Well, the first thing again, did it last week for Grayson McCall. Jack Tuttle is retiring from football after 5 concussions. Best of luck to him in his future endeavors. That sucks. It's a terrible thing. Again, this game is a brutal, brutal football, or this is a brutal sport. You love it and it does very bad things to you, but you continue to love it. Um, a lot of the guys I was reading some things on him said that, he's a winner outside of football and he'll do well in whatever he does. So just wanted to say best of luck to him. Um, yeah,
And just like last
move.
week, a moment of silence for our boy.
He
All
still
right.
played for Michigan, but
Yeah, yeah. Just it is always
No.
sad. It is always sad because it is such a brutal game that we love so much, and it's such a violent game. And I mean, you're seeing more and more concussions, and you're seeing more and more guys showing up with, 3, 4, 5+ concussions now that concussions are more, I would say, more regularly diagnosed these days. And it's sad to see, man. It really is. You got to protect your noggin, as I said last week that Marshawn Lynch always says, or protect your chickens, excuse me. And yeah, man, it sucks because he had a chance to play this year, and he had a chance to truly be potentially the saving grace for Michigan, and kind of fell a little short, which kind of stinks. But yeah, man, it always sucks to hear. It's always tough to hear when someone's career ends or when someone's passion is taken away from them
Oh yeah.
forever. So, what else?
So yeah. Next thing, Lane Kiffin. He had mentioned in the press about how frustrating it is that he called out LSU in specific that said they get another night game, and it's disappointing that my program does not um, have any, or they're not going to get a night game. And he says it's unfair how they go about that. What are your thoughts?
We had a segment last week. They got cut out of the pod, and it was about
Oh, don't worry, by the way.
okay,
That'll come up as well.
but it was about how TV rights to certain games at certain times are ruining college football and ruining not the sport, but they're ruining the theatrics of college football. They're
The
ruining
essence of what
the
college football is.
essence of what it is. Saturday nights, under the lights, top team versus top team, playing in that prime time spot. So I do agree in that sense, but body of work this season, if I had to take an LSU Texas A&M over an Ole Miss Kentucky game, I am taking LSU and A&M 9 days of the week, and there's only 7. I think that if his team was still undefeated, yes, they would have some big matchups coming up, and yes, they would have some night games. But they've let a lot of people down. They've let a lot of fans down. They've let a lot of writers down. They've let a lot of people who love college football down with how much they didn't live up to their expectations this year. So, yeah, no, I mean, I don't agree with his point in the sense that they should have more games, but I do agree with his point that more teams should have opportunities to play in that primetime spot that deserve to be there. But TV rights have taken away from, I mean, this weekend's a perfect example of that with, Ohio State, Penn State.
Well, you literally took the words out of my mouth. I had two sides of this coin. Lane Kiffin, you and your team made your bed. Now you got to lay in it. Had they not been losing football games and disappointed, they would probably get night slots. But Texas A&M, LSU, that's a playoff football game. I mean, that's a playoff type of football game, you know? So yeah, of course, that game is going to get the nod. Um, on the flip side, yes, I think it would only be fair for teams to have that opportunity to play night games because it is an advantage. I don't care what anybody says, it is an advantage. You have all there's literally data on performance from 11 o'clock compared to 7 o'clock. Not only that, you also have a bunch of drunk college kids who get all rowdy drinking all day and they are extra loud and extra crazy in the stands. Yeah, I wish everybody could get that opportunity. It does suck that we have to deal with TV rights. Um, I'll get into that as well in a bit here. The last thing that I really wanted to touch on was we are now heading into week 10. Is that correct? There's been a lot of talk about the Colorado Buffaloes and what they should and shouldn't be and what they're gonna be versus what they are. They are now sitting at 6-2, 4-1 in the conference. There's been a lot of talk about Coach Prime's methods. Some people hate it, some people love it. I want to know what you think if we're gonna reevaluate him at this point of the season and what he's done, how he's done it. What are your thoughts?
Pat Shermer.
There's got to be more to it, though. I mean,
Pat Shermer. What is their defense doing that's different than what they've been doing? Yeah, they've been a little bit less
they've been
points on the
better.
board, little less points on the board, but that's because Travis Hunter's healthy. Full transparency, that's because Travis Hunter's healthy. And yes, their pass rush is a little bit better this year. And yes, their box is playing a little bit tougher this year. But Pat Shermer, and I told you this going into the season. I mean, I can pull the week 0 clip if I need to.
You said it.
Pat Shermer is 100%. He is there for one reason and one reason only. And I actually said this privately to several people the other day. I've said this several times. Pat Shermer is there to get Shedeur ready for the NFL. He's not there to make Colorado better. He is there to lift Shedeur up to make plays, to teach him how to make plays, to teach him how to operate in a pro-style offense. They're not running a complete pro-style offense. They're not running a pro-style offense. But Pat Shermer is there to elevate Shedeur's game up to the next level and to elevate that offense to make Shedeur look great. I think you're looking at Pat Shermer going to be the offensive coordinator or going to be on the coaching staff wherever Shedeur gets drafted at next year. I believe that. I really do believe that. I do think Warren Sapp's helped a little bit as well. Having him on the defensive side of the ball, I think, has helped out a little bit. Just his knowledge alone, the guy's smart as hell when it comes to football. He understands defensive line play, defensive tendencies, and stuff like that. It's a good little addition. Well, I will say this, too. I'm throwing too much flack at Prime. I do think he's calmed down a little bit as the seasons went on. I don't think he was as in
They've
your
been a lot
face.
more quiet. They've been a lot more quiet
And I think
shut up and play football.
I don't think they shut up and play football. I don't think that's the case. I just think they've been a little bit more hesitant to say some of the stuff that they were saying after Shedeur walked out of the game and after he put his offensive line down. And then I think that following week when he brought his offensive lineman out with him and stuff like that, I think that is when the tide started to turn because they were getting too much negative press and there was too many people on Prime's head. And I think that he's just kind of just sat back and focused a little bit more on football and making comments when he's asked about him and stuff like that, but not going too over the top. So that's my opinion. I think Pat Shermer's the reason why this team's so much better than what they are. That's just my opinion. I mean, he's an former NFL head coach for several different teams.
So I heard an interesting take that a guy that's overhauling his roster in the portal and not getting guys the organic way through high school recruiting sounds like a guy that doesn't plan on being where he's at for a long time. According to what you said, if Pat Shermer's there to get Shedeur ready for the NFL, do you think Deion's here to make Colorado a good football program and keep them as a good
No.
football program?
No. Also, I just looked real quick to see if there's articles written about what I say, just so I don't sound like an idiot. There are so many articles out there about the spark that Shermer has on that team in general. And is Deion building an NFL coaching staff right now?
I mean,
'Cause
he has an NFL offensive coordinator and he has former NFL football players on his staff. Now, what is Deion's end game? It's not. It's sure enough. It can't just be should hold Shedeur's hand into the NFL. What is Deion's end game here? Does he want to go get the Florida State job? What is it?
Yeah, I mean, that might open up too. And with
Exactly.
Mike Norvell this year, I don't think Dion is going to be able to go wherever Shador goes. I don't believe that. I have a
He's still not.
weird.
I don't
I have
think
a-
he's. I don't think he's a great coach at this point
I
yet.
agree. I agree. He's still got some. He's still got some learning to do. But he's a smart football guy. You can't take that away from him.
No, no, no. Football guy, yeah,
You need to
but
put in reps to be at the level that he's in now, and he hasn't put in really
exactly.
enough reps.
That's
But
what I'm getting at.
what I was gonna say is, if his plan is to follow his kids, honestly, his kid, Shiloh's not going to the NFL. He'll make a roster because of his name. But if his plan is to follow Shador and his other kid Travis to the NFL, odds of them getting drafted to the same team are slim to none, unless someone makes a ton of trades and gives up way too much to be able to get them both 1 and 2. Shador's going to end up with the Titans. Shador's going to be the number 1 quarterback off the board. Shador is going to be the first draft pick, and the Titans are going to have the number 1 pick this year. The way the season's playing on, it's either going to be them or Carolina. Carolina, I don't think, is really in the market for a quarterback, which they might be because the Bryce Young experiments failed. Tennessee they're moving on from Will Levis. I know he's injured right now, but he can still play. They have Mason Rudolph out there playing right now. A new GM, a new head coach, a new offensive coordinator, a new offensive line coach with the great Bill Callahan. They need a playmaker at quarterback, and I think they're going to go after Shador. And because Brian was just hired this year, they're not going to fire him and hire Dion. So Dion won't be on that staff. Dion won't be on that roster at all, even as an advisor.
No, he's going to be like LeVar Ball.
I don't think so. I think he's going to stay in college maybe 1 more year, or he's going to step away after his kids are done.
They're going to be down without Travis Hunter and Shador. And I think there's a lot of variables when it comes to this. The Big 12, I mean, I'm going to call a spade here. Big 12 is not very good.
It's exciting. It's not good.
I mean, yeah, but he's obviously doing something better than everybody else. But I also think he has 2 of the best, if not the best, 2 of the best, my opinion, not the best, but arguably a lot of people put them top 2, 2 of the best college football players in the nation.
Yeah.
Of course they're beating everybody. They should be beating everybody. I'm still not a fan of the method. I think there's more to it. You've seen in bigger conferences try to overhaul their roster. It just doesn't work. But yeah, I was watching, I believe it was On 3, and they were talking about just this very thing with Dion and the Colorado experiment. I think there's a lot to it, and just kind of curious about what you thought. I've been kind of sitting back watching a lot of them, watching it kind of play out. But I think that's all I got for news. We can go ahead and move forward to
Yeah. And I do think,
previews.
I really do believe that the Titans are going to draft Shador if they have that number 1 pick.
Okay, now I'm going to ask you though, will Daddy Dion allow that? Because you
It
know
doesn't.
damn well.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what he allows. I think a lot of people see that the Titans are a quarterback away from being a much better team, not being AFC South champions,
I hope Dallas trades up.
but being
And
no,
does something really stupid.
they've pretty much already have set in stone who they're drafting this year in the first round. They're going to draft Genty. He's a Texas guy. He's going to be a first-round draft pick at running back, and they have Ezekiel Elliott as their starting running back with Dalvin Cook on the bench for like 10 yards. So that's probably who they're going to go after as a running back in that first round because that's
Whatever.
a big thing for
Well,
them.
this is the Saturday sermon, not the Sunday
Yeah,
sermon.
but to my point, he's going to go number 1. He's going to go to the Titans. I think it's more likely that you see Pat Shurmur with the Titans as an offensive coordinator or an offensive analyst than you do Dion coming to the Titans. And I think Dion's
resume to resume.
and I think Dion's only option is take a year off, see what's available, and get back into media.
Yeah.
All right.
Interesting.
Any more topics or no?
No, that's it.
Well, moving on, Nick. I'm going to let you have the floor again. Number 4, Ohio State at Penn State. We've said a lot about this game, but Ohio State's a 3.5-point favorite. 61.2% favorite over Penn State in this game by the matchup predictor. My couple questions. Is this a Will Howard revenge game? Will Drew or Bo play? And the last thing, I'll save the last thing. But is this a Will Howard revenge game? And is Drew going to play or is Bo going to play?
Does anybody really give a shit about what Will Howard has to say? I mean, he was a 3-star kid coming out of high school.
If he would have put on that hoodie like Jackson Dart, I would have listened.
That's what it reminded me of. This was like him trying to have his moment. You know what I mean? He was trying to have his moment where he sounds
I'm a
cool.
Pennsylvania kid. And they passed up on me.
We'll see how good we'll guess we'll see if I was good enough. Shut up, dude. You weren't good enough. Let's just put it that way. You weren't good enough. Your biggest offer was K-State, but outside of that, it was a bunch of smaller schools. You went on a visit to Penn State. They at least showed you that much respect. Get over yourself, dude. Mind you, you weren't even the first option for Ohio State in the portal this year. So we're just gonna keep it a buck. You should probably like understand where your place is. That's all I gotta say about that. Does Drew play or does Bo Prabula play? I don't know what you're doing.
Which one?
Both of them. I don't see a world. Well, here's the thing, and it's
About both of them.
It's infuriating, but it makes sense strategically. James Franklin will not give you shit when it comes to injuries. For all we know, Drew's leg could have been amputated. We'd have zero idea. But from the way I looked at it, he was on the sideline going back and forth. He was up. I'm not saying that means he's just going to go. I just don't know to what extent. Now, I think if he's not good enough to be as mobile as he is, you're going to see a heavier dose of Bo. I wouldn't be surprised if you see Drew Eller walk out there for the first drive. That's just how Penn State operates. They're not gonna say anything. You're not gonna know anything until that offense walks on the field for the first time. Either way, he's gonna be dressed out. He could not take a single snap that game. He's going to be in full gear.
They're going to have to put out a 2-deep, though. You have to trade a 2-deep before the game, so
Someone's
going to have to be number
the
one
rule,
quarterback.
I think, the rule with the Big Ten, I think they have to do it 24 hours beforehand. But he's going to let Ohio State try to game plan for both of them, which I think could, that could help them or could hurt them. I mean, if they're spread themselves too thin on trying to game plan for both, maybe that's good. If their defense is what they think they are and they have a way to stop both of them, that's a different story. I don't doubt it if Drew doesn't play now. Or if Drew, I wouldn't doubt it if Drew's playing. Now, the one that I'm more concerned about, Deni Dennis Sutton. And I say that because our biggest strength Penn State's biggest strength going into this game is what was an obvious weakness for Ohio State. Not only for just from last week and recently with their starting left tackle Josh Simmons out, but this was going back to last year, thinking, is this Ohio State offensive line really that good? Our best football player plays defensive line at Penn State. Okay, Deni Dennis Sutton, if you have them both, we have enough depth. Now, we did lose some depth in the offseason with injuries and other things, but I think you need that guy healthy. I think you need him healthy because you need that defensive line to show out, and they need to be able to stop the run and fluster Will Howard. He got hit a lot last week. I think the same thing needs to happen this week if Penn State wants to win this football game.
Last thing on this real quick. Alabama. Texas. Tennessee, Ohio State. Are we seeing massive teams in slumps right now?
Yes, you sure are.
I I was after Nebraska, Indiana. I thought Ohio State was going to come, and honestly, I thought they were going to pummel Nebraska. To be fair with you,
Well, the thing is they had something to prove, and if they should have done just that. They
yeah,
lost a football game, had to sit on it for a whole week, and their whole thing going in there, anything in the press was like, "We're just ready to get on the football field and right or wrong." They did not right or wrong before the second biggest game of their season, and not to mention they still have Indiana down the stretch, who is terrifying to play right now.
yeah.
My thing about Ohio State is this, and maybe this is just I'm a Penn State fan,
Mm-hmm.
and I've seen this play out. I've had my hopes up before. I would not doubt it if Ohio State comes out guns blazing and just starts the game off and plays an amazing game against Penn State. Totally opposite of what they just did against Indiana. I wouldn't doubt it. They have a week to get things right, to really get things right, to figure out their best lineman combination, to try to see what they need to do to run the football better. That being said, I have a little bit of hope. I have some hope in Penn State. I wish that we didn't have as many guys hurt. I think a key to this game that a lot of people aren't talking about is the fact that we originally lost our starting safety. Okay. So it's had to shaken it's shaken up our um how we like to play our guys, and it limits from being able to stop or limit some Will Howard's runs. I think Will Howard's legs are very important this game. And I think if he can start gaining chunk plays or, getting some movement with his legs, I think that opens up a lot for that offense. That's a bit of a concern for me.
Are you about to start crying?
No, no,
Okay.
I'm in deep thought here. But I don't know, man.
You literally look like you're about to
I
start crying right there.
No, I'm going to if they win. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'll probably shed a couple tears. Um, no, but I think that I'm cautiously optimistic. Let's put it
hmm
that way. I'm cautiously optimistic for Penn State. I think they have a chance to do something, but the second I get my hopes up, they get crushed. So I'm not gonna do that. I do think if they win this game, this elevates them to new heights. Um, and that puts Ohio State at two losses before November. We get deep into November, and they still have Indiana on the schedule. This game's a lot more crucial to Ohio State, obviously, with that one loss than it is Penn State. But man, what it would do to elevate Penn State if they can finally get the job done.
So, last question on this topic: who you taking?
Come on, dude. No matter what you believe, no matter what I believe,
Unbiasedly, who you taking?
biasly, with all the bias. Is biasly even a word? Give me the Nittany Lions, dude. They've broken my heart too many times. Something's got to give.
Well, Nick, I have to admit something to you. These past couple of weeks, I've been trolling you a little bit. I'm kidding. I'm taking Penn State as well. I think Penn State's going to pull it off. I really do. I'm excited about this one. I will be tuned into this one. I will be focused on this one. One thing I told you a couple weeks ago, I don't even really hate Penn State. I just like to give you guff. I like to give you crap about it. The scandal and all that stuff, it is tough for me to still get over. But that's neither here nor there. I don't care about that in this conversation of what we're talking about right now. I hate Ryan Day. And we have not said this in weeks because we went a little too overboard when we first started this thing. I hate Ryan Day. I think he's a crybaby. I think he's a crybaby bully. I think he is a spoiled, rotten coach who was born on third base. I hate Ryan Day so much as a football coach, as a media personality. I'm not a fan of his. I don't want to see them win this game. I hope that they lose this game, they lose to Indiana, and we're having a conversation about what's next for Ohio State. Now, I don't want a man to lose his job. I'll never say that. But there's a guy waiting in the wings that would be a much better head coach for this program that is currently an analyst for the Cleveland Browns. And that's Mike Vrabel. I'm starting it today. Bring Mike home. Bring Mike home. I will support Ohio State tenfold.
Oh, go.
If Mike Vrabel's the head coach.
You shut your damn mouth.
But I just cannot stand Ryan Day and his entitlement that he has.
Did you see him last week? Like, don't get me wrong. That targeting call. First off, I forgot to mention it. It did get reversed. What's that kid's name? Arvell something. God. Arvell Reese, the linebacker. That was a terrible call. They actually so bad that Big Ten overruled it. He's actually going to be able to play the whole game against Penn State. But did you see his reaction?
We were right by each other, weren't we?
Was throwing a massive fit.
Tantrum.
Ripping his... Yeah, it was a tantrum. That's what it looked like. It was a tantrum.
It was a spoiled kid tantrum. And that, so I say all this stuff about Ryan Day. I'm sure he's a great person outside of the game. Outside. I'm sure he's a good person outside of the game. As a football coach, as I said a little bit ago, I cannot stand that man. And I could tolerate him until the Lou Holtz thing, and that Lou Holtz thing was just what tipped me over the edge. Nick, I want to see him lose so bad. I really want to see Penn State get this win because all in all, James Franklin seems like a good guy. He is whiny at times, but all in all, he seems like a pretty good guy. And the most important thing is he's a good leader of men. He really is, and he was the perfect person. I wouldn't say Bill O'Brien was the perfect person for this, but he was the perfect person to rebuild the program after the travesty that happened years ago. I think he was the perfect model coach to come in. He was with Vanderbilt. He was with the Nerds, and he did an incredible job with the Nerds. And he's a perfect person. He's a perfect leader of men. He's a perfect leader. And I think that I want to see him win. I want to see him find the success. I told you a couple weeks ago I have a feeling that they're going to end up in that number 1 or number 2 spot going into the college football playoffs. And I want to see that happen so bad. I'm trying to will it into existence. I'll never put Penn State clothing on my body, but would love to see that happen. So I'll be a huge Penn State fan in the playoffs if they make it.
Listen, I hope you are right. Like I said,
Sorry, Ryan Day.
I've been hurt, so it's hard for me to ever outright be like, this is it. This is the year. I feel cautiously optimistic. I'm going to leave it at that. I hope that your predictions are 100% correct.
So do I. Penn State, Ohio State, we're both taking Penn State next game. Nick, I'm more excited about this game than I am Penn State, Ohio State. 18 Pitt at 20 SMU. I don't know why this game has me, I almost have goosebumps thinking about this game. It's so exciting. SMU is a 7.5-point favorite, although they are ranked 2 spots below Pitt. SMU is currently a 70.2% favorite. I think I'm so invested in this game because of the fact that, number one, I've said this several times, I don't think they're frauds, but I don't think Pitt is as good as what the rankings show. I don't think Pitt deserves the hype that they're getting with the way that they're playing, but I understand why. SMU has looked so good, and it's been one of my best predictions that I've had all season long. I believe I had it either week 0 when they played or week 1 when they played that first game against Nevada, I believe. SMU is so much better with Jennings under center than Stone. SMU has went on a tear with Jennings at quarterback. I'm super excited about it, man. They beat a good Duke team last week. Pitt's coming off
a sneaky good Duke team that doesn't get enough credit.
They don't get enough love. And also, Pitt's coming off of a defensive masterclass against Syracuse. I'm excited about this one. I'm jazzed about this one. I'm taking SMU in this game. I'm taking SMU to cover.
I cannot stand Pitt. I think Pat Narduzzi is another one of those coaches that's just a jackass. But after what they did last week, it is hard. It's hard. It's hard to pick against them. I know SMU's hot right now. I gotta roll with Pitt until they prove me wrong because I've been in the same boat as you. I've just waiting for them to lose. They're gonna lose. They're gonna lose. I picked Cal to beat them, which they should have.
A field goal.
Hey, almost only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades. They keep on winning. They keep on winning, and right after that performance they played. Now this is how college football works. This would be the game they go lay an egg after playing like gods out there, but they got to lose until I pick against them, I think. Give me Pitt.
All right. Well, Nick, we got one more game that we want to cover. It is number 10, Texas A&M at unranked South Carolina. It is the battle of the male cheerleaders versus Darius Rucker. This game it's
what?
Isn't Darius Rucker a huge South Carolina fan, or did I make that up?
I don't know, dude. I don't know.
And the male cheerleaders. Have you not seen the male cheerleaders? At Texas A&M, they wear the white military outfits or whatever. Yeah.
Yes.
They do that yell. Was it the late night yell or whatever? And it's just yeah.
I don't know what
Anyway,
Texas A&M male cheerleaders are doing. I don't know what Darius Rucker's doing.
No, I'm talking about the stadium.
Anyways,
at Texas A&M, do like a stadium yell or chant or something like that, like super late at night. I believe the night before the game, or super late at night after the game, or something.
Weird.
Yeah. Anyways, guys, this game to me is going to show Texas A&M ceiling. This game is going to show how good Texas A&M is going to be in the back half of the season. A&M. Funny that we should mention it, is once again a 2.5-point favorite. They were a 2.5-point favorite versus Mizzou. What happened in that game?
They blew the doors off of the Missouri Tiger football program.
They were a 2.5-point favorite against LSU. And what happened in that game? Now they're a 2.5-point favorite over South Carolina. Something about A&M and 2.5 points is really getting me kind of bet happy to take A&M 2.5. I'm excited about this game. I really like what Elko's been doing. A&M's currently the 54.5-point favorite, or 54.5% favorite going into this, so it's almost a 50-50 split. I'm excited about watching the Rocket and Moss go at it out of the backfield. I think that's going to be a really fun matchup. I think Moss is a really, really talented running back with a very bright future ahead of him. I'm taking Texas A&M. Nick, what are your thoughts on this game?
You know, you told me, what is that, the ESPN predictor that has A&M at 54%?
The matchup predictor.
Yeah, the matchup predictor. That makes me feel a little bit better about taking A&M. I kind of expected there to be a bigger gap. I mean, what, 2.5? You said 2.5. That's crazy. That being said,
Again.
Beamer is one of those guys that I don't really know how to pinpoint it. He's kind of what I thought like Hugh Freeze was going to be, where you're just like, what the hell is this guy and his team gonna do? And then they sneak one in on you, or they're pesky. I wouldn't doubt one bit after Texas A&M comes off of this huge victory that Mr. Beamer and the South Carolina Gamecocks are the team that upsets them and everything goes back to reality. That being said, I'm taking Texas A&M. I can't turn my back on how I've my gut now. It's gonna be a good game. It's a sneaky one at that.
Perfect. So those are the games we're covering this week that we mutually are covering. Now we're going to go do our picks for games of the week, and these picks are typically outside of what we already have selected to talk about. My 3 picks for game of the week this week. Number 1, Duke at number 5 Miami. I think that game on paper looks like a Miami blowout, which it very well could be.
But it also couldn't be.
I don't see it being. I think that 2.5 points is a huge slap in the face or 21.5 points is a huge slap in the face to Duke. I think this could be a very, very fun matchup. So that is my number 1 pick. My number 2 pick, number 19 Ole Miss at Arkansas. Miss is currently a 7-point favorite in this game, and Talon Green is coming off of a full-on slaughter of the other Mississippi school with Mississippi State. Nick, upset alert written all over it.
100,000%.
The way that Arkansas beat Tennessee, I could see this same thing happening again. Last pick for game of the week. Minnesota at 24, Illinois. The Minnesota is currently a 3-point favorite. In this game, Nick, I'm going to say it. Tough to say, but I think the Reptilians are going to strike, and I think they're going to be hot in this game. I'm taking Minnesota in this game. So, Nick, what do you think of those 3 games, and what are your picks?
Well, that's funny because I picked 2 of them, and the first 2 you rattled off are the same 2 that I picked. I think something that some people may be forgetting about is there's a little storyline behind this Duke at Miami game that I haven't seen much of, and that has to do with Duke's head coach, Mr. Manny Diaz. To me, when he went and took this Duke job, it felt like to me, like I could just see it in my head, Manny just plotting, saying, they did me dirty in Miami. I'm going to the ACC. I'm going to get my revenge. He could have just taken the job because it was a good move for his family, but I like to
And they were
believe he
also
took it.
coming off a hot season. I don't mean to cut you off there, but Duke was coming off of a
Sure.
pretty hot season the year before.
Sure, but I like to think that, and whether it's true or not, it is to me that Manny took another ACC job because he wanted to get his revenge on Miami. We've been saying Miami's going to get clipped for a minute now because of how they've played. Again, this game, I think, one of 2 ways. I think Miami's going to just outright dominate them they're gonna cover, or Miami may sneak a massive upset, or at least threaten it. And I hope it happens. I hope Miami gets beat by Duke.
Agree.
Next game,
The basketball
which
school.
I think, yeah, next game, which I think is more disrespectful, is giving Ole Miss 7 points on the Arkansas Razorbacks. What's Ole Miss's best accomplishment this season? Like what's the best thing they've done this year?
That game against
Beat Furman?
Furman. I was going to say the game against Furman.
Oklahoma was not good. They lost to. They haven't done anything this year. They've done nothing impressive. And for them to just automatically get 7 points on Arkansas, who has a huge win
Top 10 win.
against one of the best, a top five win, a top five win against Tennessee, I think is outright disrespectful. They're coming off of a 58-point performance last week. They lost by 4 points to Texas A&M. I know it's a loss, but it's not a bad loss. Give me Arkansas to pull off the upset outright. I'm sick of Ole Miss.
Yeah. I want to see. I think Arkansas is going to pull this off.
And then the last one you said is one that I just totally went over my head. I'm not gonna lie to you, Minnesota does kind of scare me down the stretch. Penn State does have to go to Minnesota to play them. They're one of those games. They've done it before to Penn State, but that one is a bit concerning because they are very stingy on defense, and they have at least some serviceable pieces on offense
Yep.
that can get you. So I'm with you on that one. I would have put that up there had I realized it, but no, definitely those first two I think are going to be great games to watch. I love the Duke Manny Diaz storyline with Miami. I think Arkansas is getting disrespected, and I think Minnesota, Illinois is going to be your classic Big Ten hard-hitting matchup.
You're forgetting the most important storyline here, Nick. When you talk about 1A high school coaches in the state of Illinois, who is their hometown hero?
EJ, the reptilian Fleck,
It's a little
the
built-in
cult leader.
storyline there too. An Illinois guy coming to Illinois, taking the win in Illinois. Huh?
I hope Bielema just,
And then
I
sits on
really
him
do.
after the game. Just a big hulking man like
Just
Bielema just straight up just sits on him afterwards and just truly
middle of the
just
handshake,
squeezes that little lizard out of his brain
just midfield handshake, exposes him Scooby-Doo style, rips off the human mask.
to
The whole
find
stadium,
a reptile just operating with some those little metal
the
handles.
whole the whole stadium just loses their freaking minds.
Man. And then
All hell breaks
we
loose.
have to reopen Area 51 or whatever that place is called, and then we got to figure out all this alien stuff, and yeah,
It
we're
changes the
becoming a
world as we know it
conspiracy.
in Champagne.
We're literally becoming a conspiracy theory podcast about the reptilian thing. So we probably should stop so our page doesn't get struck or strikes. But the reptilian man, I think he's gonna win. I think they're gonna beat Illinois.
You might not be wrong there, but we shall see.
All right, those are your picks. We had
That's it.
Okay, so toilet bowl game of the week. Joe has a pretty good niche here with picking these toilet bowl games. I don't think I've picked one that has not been a banger all season. Last week I picked Utah State at Wyoming, or Utah State Wyoming, excuse me, and Utah State beat Wyoming in a pretty good game, 27-25. I think I got a pretty good knack at this. This one this week that I'm picking, 3-5 versus 1-6. 3-5 Northwestern, 1-6 Purdue. The line is currently set at 1 point. Northwestern.
Good Lord.
Yeah. So, I, if Purdue can find a spark like they did against the other Illinois school, this Illinois school is not going to be able to solve that puzzle. I'm taking Purdue.
I'm not picking Purdue in anything right now.
Basketball. You'll pick them in basketball.
Yeah, I'll pick them in basketball when they play Northwestern. Northwestern's winning that football game. I can't take Purdue.
1 point favorite. That's nuts.
That's bizarre.
Well, guys, we have two more little segments left in this show, but we had one that got cut out last week. And this is usually my time to rest my voice a little bit and to let my co-host Nicholas Reichert do his thing. So I present you with the greatest segment in any college football show of all time. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it is time for the ultimate Nick Reichert crash out. Nick, mic's muted.
Big noon kickoff is bullshit. Big noon kickoff is bullshit if you didn't hear it the first time. They are ruining college football for selfish reasons because they just want to make all the money they can make in the world, and they are ruining what makes college football great. I am so sick and tired of this happening across the college football landscape where it's something should just be protected in college football. They should be preserved. They should never be able to be touched and messed with. This is one of them. Nobody, with all due respect to Washington, I think they're a pretty decent program. Nobody wants to see the whiteout against Washington. They just don't want to see it. Nobody wanted to see it against Iowa last year. Nobody wanted to see it against Minnesota 2 years ago. They want to see Penn State, Ohio State whiteout. Why is that a hard concept to grasp? Not to mention, you're going to have number 3 versus 4. You have a top 5 matchup, and it's played at freaking 11 o'clock. What even is this? That is despicable. And you know what? College Game Day is going to be at Happy Valley in Happy Valley. Big Noon Kickoff Crew is going to be in Happy Valley. I have love for the Big Noon Kickoff guys. I think they do a good job. But with all due respect, I hope not a single soul, not a single 110, 150,000 people who are going to be in that general area show up. I hope that is a blank stage, and I hope it is an embarrassment to Fox. Speaking of Fox, when it comes to politics, I'm not a political guy. This is not a political move. But another thing that really irks me is one of the presidential candidates is going to be at the Penn State Ohio State game. Now, I don't give a shit. Okay, you know what I do care about? The fact is the traffic is going to be horrendous. The security is going to be horrendous. What happens? Is everybody going to be able to be in their seat by kickoff? Again, this game is about Penn State and Ohio State. Yet it's being made to win political votes. It's being made to be monetized to its fullest, and it is ruining something great. And it makes me sick to my damn stomach. Did I mention that Big Noon Kickoff is bullshit?
Multiple
Do I
times.
have anything else?
Honestly, throwing in the
No.
political thing was great.
That's done. I'm done.
All right, well, Nick, I'm going to crash out here for a second. My crash out. Ladybugs, go away. Please and thank you. That's all I got. I just wanted to feel included in that segment, Nick. But hey, it was great. I enjoyed it. Nick, as always, closing thoughts on the pod.
I'm debating on putting like $50 on the Buckeyes to win the game. And the only reason is because if they do, I'll win money. But if they lose, honestly, I'd pay more than $50 to see Penn State beat Ohio State. So it's kind of like a consolation prize, you know?
Yeah.
I've thought about it the past couple years. It's been 7 years since it's happened, so I've had a lot of time to think about it. Um, the verdict is still out. I am going to be on the beach watching this football game.
Selfish.
I
Selfish. Very selfish.
really hope that I really hope that I don't ruin vacation if there is a loss.
You will.
I know that would cause major issues with Brooke and I. So I'm gonna try to keep it calm. But you know what? If I'm on the beach with a Paloma and Penn State beats Ohio State, I'm going to be the happiest man on the planet. Point blank. And God, I really hope that happens.
What's that song? That all I got is your hand in my hand. Baby, I could die a happy man. Once Penn State beats Ohio State. Nick, don't die when that happens, please. That's all I'm asking.
I mean, if they lose, there's an ocean that I could.
No, stop. Okay,
Never mind.
we're not going that dark in this. Damn it, it's Halloween week. Nick, my closing thoughts are, first and foremost, it has been fun as always. I appreciate having this time to talk college football, to enjoy some college football, to watch some games over here in the corner during the episode. I'm excited. I'm jazzed up. I'm looking forward to this slate this weekend, although we will be at a 2-year-old's birthday party for the second week in a row. Or for the second week in a row, we'll be at somewhere other than my home, which kind of sucks. But I'm really looking forward to the birthday party on Saturday. Shout out to Eloise. We love you. Happy birthday. It's going to be a great
So
birthday
sorry,
party.
I'm not going to be there.
Yeah, Nick's not going to be there, horrible uncle. But no, we're going to be at that birthday party, and I'm going to be probably bringing the iPad with me, as well as making sure my cell phone has a phone charger so I can watch multiple games at once. I might even bring the quad box, wink, wink, Dakota, if you're making it this late into the podcast, although you fell asleep on us and did not show up to record with us tonight. I'm going to bring the quad box with me this weekend. We're going to hook it up to your Wi-Fi, and we're going to watch 4 games at once. Got to do it. So that's my closing thoughts. I'm super excited for this weekend, super excited for everything going on. Most importantly, I'm very excited for Boise State, San Diego State on Friday night, and I'm excited for Tennessee playing this weekend. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be a blast. It's going to be a thrill. But as always, we have to close it because it's closing time. And Nick, remember to keep college football holy. Good night, ladies and gentlemen.